What's happening, everybody? Final UFC card in 2024. We've got UFC Tampa on tap today. Colby Covington taking on Joaquin Buckley in a welterweight scrap. One of the key components to this card is that it will be fought and contested in front of a live audience and a packed crowd in Tampa. I expect a lot of exciting fights, and also I think that the crowd is going to become a factor in a number of these matchups. The bloodlust should be on or in full effect, so be prepared for that. Should be an incredible 13 fight card to close out 2024. And before we get started here, I just wanted to thank everybody for tuning in. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. I know that we've been at this for many years and made the transition over from DFS way back when. Had my tracked betting record back since 2016. Started over at betmma.tips in 2017, and we've had 6 consecutive winning years. And the key here is momentum. So looking forward to this card. We've profited on 4 of the last 5 UFC events, and we are putting ourselves in some good spots here. So let's get things kicked off with the first fight of the night. We've got ladies inside of the octagon. Josephine Knutsson taking on Piera Rodriguez. Piera Rodriguez is coming off of a controversial fight where she was disqualified. She ended up headbutting Klose, and that was pretty disturbing to watch. You saw the low fight IQ on full display. Granted, Rodriguez is a talented fighter, but she was headbutting and got disqualified against Klose. Now, Knutsson has been unable to finish a sandwich inside of the octagon. We saw against Marnik Man, that was talk about playing with your food. That was on full display there. Now, Knutsson, I believe, has trained out of All Stars at one point in time. Talented fighter in her own right, versatile skill set, and she knows how to win. So that's something you'd like to see, fighters who are out there with a goal, walking out victorious in mind. I am hesitant to play any type of money line in this spot. I do think this fight is going to end up going over, and I'll be picking Knutsson to win. Next up, we've got Ramon Tavares taking on Davy Grant. And look at this. We've got a pick 'em here, -110 across the board. And if this fight was taking place a few years ago, Davy Grant, we saw on Fight Island, I believe he broke his jaw in a matchup. Was it against Jonathan Martinez? I believe it was. And this guy, when he steps into his strikes, very impressive. Also, the win over a Sun Sao, inverted triangle, I believe. That blew my mind to watch that play out. Davy Grant, man, he will fight hard for your money. He is what our long lost MMA handicapper Rockstar Z would say. He's a good soldier. Hopefully Z's doing well wherever he is. Shout out to Z's MMA picks back of the day. In this matchup, I believe Tavares is the cleaner striker here. Grant is wild at times. Look out for those spinning attacks from Davy Grant. I think that the crowd is going to become a factor here, and this is going to light the arena on fire, this matchup. It's going to turn into, in my eyes, a striking matchup where both of these fighters are going to be trading in the pocket. And unfortunately for Davy Grant, I believe that Ramon Tavares is going to come out on top here. I know he isn't the most defensively sound fighter, Tavares, but neither is Davy Grant. And I think that Tavares is going to end up catching Grant, and there are a lot of miles on the odometer for Davy Grant. So give me Ramon Tavares in that matchup. I was thinking of Jonathan Martinez at one point in time. We've got a lot of people in here. Let's see. We're patiently waiting, Sam. I'm excited that you are here. What do you think of Grant and Tavares over 2.5 rounds. I'm not touching that. I think that these two are going to engage in a firefight, and I will be picking Ramon Tavares. I think that someone might end up falling. I think that the miles on David Grant, I will talk about Miles Johnson in a little bit, but the miles on David Grant are going to come back to haunt him here. Now, Miranda Maverick, who we've seen against Jasmine Jasudavicius, she got outworked in that fight, and that was a disturbing sight to see. She's taking on another Canadian fighter here, and Jamie Lynn Horth. In this matchup, I think that was a learning lesson for Miranda Maverick in that spot. We've seen her come back a little bit better each time out. She's still only 27 years of age, so she's getting better. She is capable of utilizing her physicality, and against Jamie Lynn Horth, who's primarily a striker, kickboxer, I believe, by trade, Jamie Lynn Horth is she was gifted a decision in the last matchup, and I believe it was Petrovic who she fought last time out. Jamie Lynn Horth, she is not someone I recommend putting your hard-earned money behind. She has her limits, and in this spot, Miranda Maverick, I believe if you were able to get in on her in the minus 200s, you'd be much better off than where you see her sitting now in minus 620 at the betting window. So multiple paths to victory for Maverick. I believe the physicality is going to be huge here. Horth is the taller fighter, the lankier fighter, and fight IQ is in question for Jamie Lynn Horth. Miranda Maverick, I think that the loss against Jasmine Jasudavicius really has lit a fire under her, and I don't expect her to drop the ball like that again. Give me Miranda Maverick to walk away victorious there. Now, we've got some more comments here. It's the last coffee of the year. Yes, that is true. And my Aaron, yes, that's true also. Maverick, steamed, minus 315, minus 620. Maverick was actually in the minus 200s, believe it or not, at some books for a while. Now, Felipe Lima taking on Miles Johns. This is a matchup that I have had placed on my refrigerator. I'm looking forward to this one. Miles Johns, he tends to be coached up pretty well. I mean, what happened? We haven't seen or heard about James Krause and what's going on there. Team Fortis, they know what they're doing. I respect the job that they've done with Brandon Moreno. And Miles Johns is a fighter who came out the other side victorious against Douglas Silva de Andrade. And he's someone who's going to throw one punch at a time, is going to really lay into his strikes. He does have knockout power, and he is going to be taking on a very aggressive fighter in Felipe Lima, who is Brazilian, though trains out of All Stars, and I really enjoy their corner work also. Felipe Lima, we saw volume. We saw he took on a fire hydrant in Muhammad Naimov, and that was a fight that took place up at 145 pounds. This fight today takes place at 145 pounds. Felipe Lima typically has competed down at bantamweight, so he's taken this fight 145, both of these fighters. Miles Johns, typically a bantamweight. In this spot, Felipe Lima has the ability to get out on points. He, in my eyes, has the better cardio here. Miles Johns, better wrestling. You don't see it that much. I believe he was a captain of his wrestling team at one point and ended up walking away from the sport to turn to MMA. Don't really like to see a captain turn their back on a team and walk away from their strengths. And Miles Johns, if he comes out grappling heavy here, this is a guy who doesn't necessarily have a great gas tank. Lima sitting around minus 240, minus 250-ish range. He's got to worry about getting clipped. That's the one concern of mine. I know that he's riding, a 13-fight winning streak. Both of these fighters have pretty incredible records. Miles Johns somehow has been able to skate by with a 15-2, I believe, is it 15-2 or 15-1 record? I believe 15-2. Let me just double check that there. Yeah, 15-2 record for Miles Johns. And the John Castaneda loss, that was a concern. Mario Bautista, if you're going to get fly kneed by somebody, it might be Mario Bautista, but it also might be Felipe Lima. We saw in the Naimov fight, Felipe Lima came out, was throwing flying knees right off the bat, threw caution to the wind. But he's got to be careful because he has a big hitter coming back at him in Miles Johns. Give me Felipe Lima to win, and I think that the crowd is going to be the factor, or be a significant factor in this crowd. If you are going to the arena, make sure you're in your seats for this fight. Now, this is a mirror image fight. Fernando Padilla taking on Sean Woodson. Sean Woodson has one of the strangest frames in UFC. The Charles Jourdain fight we saw, man, he was able to get his grappling going. I'm interested to see if he tries that against Fernando Padilla. I think that this fight is likely going to end inside the distance. And I'll be picking the underdog for Padilla here. I think that the weight cuts are going to drain Woodson here. I think that the crowd is going to be a factor here. You can't work your way against the fence and stall against the fence like we saw against Jourdain. That isn't going to be a path to victory here for Sean Woodson against Fernando Padilla. I'll be picking Padilla. I think that things are going to get wild. I think that we're going to see some elbows in the clinch landing for Padilla, and that this fight ends inside the distance. Really looking forward to that one. Let's see. I like your breakdowns. Keep up the work. Good work. Thank you. Felipe Lima is back. Been looking forward to him. Patrick, good to see you. Thank you for choosing to join us. You're going back to the well with Johns. It's an auto bet for you. Look at that. I see the wrestling emojis there. So you think that that's going to be the play. The challenge, I know Johns has it, and Naimov was able to hold him down for a minute or two, but the round ended. I'm interested to see, does he have 15 minutes? Been waiting to fade Woodson. Okay, let's see. All right, now, so the pick for me there is Fernando Padilla. Next up, we've got Michael Johnson taking on Ottman Azaitar. This is the guy who had the potatoes in his knapsack over in Fight Island, right? And we've seen Ottman Azaitar get flatlined by Matt Frivola, I believe. Steamroller Frivola. Michael Johnson can throw hands. He has a semblance of striking defense. Azaitar is going to be winging punches and looking to close distance. And when he does that, I believe that Michael Johnson is going to find the target here. Especially this fight does take place in Florida. I suspect that Michael Johnson will have a large contingency of supporters in that matchup, and I know that there's a lot of miles on Michael Johnson. Michael Johnson, I believe he has 22-19 overall record, so he's closing in on 20 losses. That's like you're talking about Anthony Smith levels of losses here. That's dangerous. Got to be concerned about the CTE and all sorts of other stuff there. But give me Michael Johnson to win here. It's cleaner striker, and the gas tank of Azaitar, I don't trust it. I think that this fight is going to turn into a situation where the judges will not be needed. So give me Johnson to win by TKO. Now, look at this. Navajo Sterling taking on George Tokkos. Tokkos coming in as plus 700, lost on road to the UFC. Also, we saw take a loss last time out, and he's brought in here. We know what the UFC is trying to do. Navajo Sterling, exciting fighter. This fight will likely not see the scorecards, and my pick is Navajo Sterling to win this fight inside the distance. But I see what they're doing here. Tampa, they want to see a knockout. After this fight ends, you can get online at the beverage area and grab yourself an ice cold one for me. So Navajo Sterling is going to likely win this fight inside the distance. And a lot of these lines are unplayable. If you want to play something, look at the under 1.5 in this matchup. Wow. All right. This is another fight that ended up on my fridge. Adrian Yanez taking on Daniel Marcos. Daniel Marcos, undefeated fighter, minus 220 at the betting window today. And he is taking on an Adrian Yanez who's been a bit of a one-trick pony throughout the course of his UFC career. But that one trick, the striking acumen and the slick boxing of Adrian Yanez is very, very impressive. Now, he did get blown out of the water by Rob Font, and he's coming off of a win now. So maybe there's some confidence on behalf of Adrian Yanez. Man, Marcos, he can mix in leg kicks. He can strike with the best of them. If this ends up being strictly a boxing affair, then Yanez becomes extremely live here. This is another fight where the Tampa crowd is going to get their money's worth. I really enjoy this fight from a capping perspective and from a stylistic perspective. As this fight unfolds, there may be a time and a place when Yanez turns the tide. I suspect the crowd here is going to lift Adrian Yanez back into this fight midway through this one. Man, this is a tough one here. It's going to come down to confidence for me. I think that if Adrian Yanez starts running into punches, and we've seen it happen early. Remember, he fought a fighter from Massachusetts. Why am I drawing a blank here? From Boston, who ended up down in Florida, by the way. I believe he liked Dr. Pepper, was it? Or there was either a soft drink or a candy bar. Someone remind me. Yanez, first round, ended up eating jab after jab after jab, and then turned the corner. He could fight in a phone booth. Yanez can, but Marcos, undefeated. I'm not going to go out of my way to fade an undefeated fighter in Marcos who when the going gets tough. I know the fight against Davey Grant, it was very, very close. Man, this is a tough one. I would play Yanez live, but my pick's going to be Marcos. I think that this fight could be a very closely fought affair. Hesitant to even make a pick in this fight, but I know I have to. Marcos is going to be the pick, but Yanez has the ability to win this. He can box with the best of them. Should be a good one. Now, you talk about a situation where somebody was potentially fraud checked. People could say that about Vitor Petrino, but Vitor Petrino, Anthony Smith, you're getting guillotined by Anthony Smith. That's an issue. But I believe Petrino was undefeated headed into that matchup, and he felt like he was invincible, and that squeeze got him. And he's taking on Dustin Jacoby, who I've seen fight in person against Da Un Jung and others. Dustin Jacoby is willing to stand in the pocket and trade. He's a kickboxer who's fought the likes of Alex Pereira. He, when it comes to kickboxing, he's excellent, but he's going to be fighting a power puncher in Petrino who can also grapple and has no qualms going redline, and he will redline it, Petrino, if asked to do so. And that's dangerous for Dustin Jacoby, because when Jacoby gets pushed, that's when he falters. And we've seen Jacoby make some poor in-fight decisions at times. I'm going to be picking Petrino here, but technically, Dustin Jacoby's the much cleaner striker, much cleaner. And you have to wonder where Petrino's confidence is at. How hungry is he? How thirsty is he for victory headed into this matchup against Dustin Jacoby? Dustin Jacoby, well coached, but I think that Petrino is going to walk away the other side. Let's see. Do you think Felipe is going to dominate Miles Johnson? Potentially. Mini Masvidal getting better get the W. I hope he does. We'll see. Let's see. You think Yanez gets a statement fight? Interesting. Statement victory. I'm going to be picking Vitor Petrino here to win. And I think this is the end of the road for Dustin Jacoby. I think that he's going to get caught in either a submission or get brutally knocked out. I have a lot of respect for what Dustin Jacoby brings to the table, but this is a young man's sport. And I think that Petrino, when it comes down to it, is going to be the much more hungry fighter and looking for victory here. So I think that he can pull this off. And some may say that this is a discounted price, set minus 300, but look what happened last time out against Anthony Smith. I got burned. I was backing Petrino in that matchup. And, oh, man, so I'm staying away from this one. Could play out a number of different ways, but Petrino is going to be the pick. By the way, thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Remember, make sure to hit the subscribe and like button. We're careening towards 1,000 subscribers. I have well over 10,000 followers on Twitter, but the key here is quality over quantity. I want to produce quality work, and I appreciate each and every one of you for your time and your energy here. So let's talk flyweights. Let's talk Manel Kape. Let's talk Bruno Silva. Bruno Silva, man, this cat will, he's trained under Henry Cejudo, right? And he will mix things up. He will wade into the fire. He will throw with everything he has. He can kick, but he also can get brutalized as well. So this is a dangerous fight against Manel Kape, who is a sniper if you've ever seen one. By the way, significant size difference here. Manel Kape, this is somebody who's dropped the ball, failing on the scales multiple times. Disturbing trend of events for Manel Kape. Never really got the strength and conditioning in play. I believe he thinks he's better than he actually is. That's a problem for me. If Bruno Silva starts finding the target early, that's going to be tough, though. Manel Kape, striker, typically completely locked in. I'm going to be picking Manel Kape to win this fight. Think that he does have an opponent here in Bruno Silva who is very reckless, and that is going to come back to haunt Bruno Silva. Bruno Silva could potentially make this a fight by taking big risks, and he's outmatched from a range striking perspective. But if this gets dirty, if he pushes Manel Kape, we've seen. Was it Felipe dos Santos? There was a fighter in his debut who looked competitive against Manel Kape. I think that had to do with Manel Kape underestimating his opponent, and that's another thing here. Manel Kape, he thinks he should be wearing the belt, but give me Manel Kape to win, and I think that he does get a knockout here. Looking forward to that one. Now, Billy Quarantillo taking on Cub Swanson. We know exactly who both of these fighters are at this stage in their respective careers. Cub Swanson, go back and watch that Darren Elkins fight if you want to fulfill that unquenchable bloodlust. Billy Quarantillo has the grappling. Can he get this fight into deep waters? By the way, I believe he trains out of Tampa. I know originally he was with Sarah Longo, but he's down in Florida. He's been down there for a while, and he is a solid grappler. Very clunky, though, when it comes to on the feet. We've seen against Barboza and others, he can get put out, and he may not have the greatest chin. And Cub Swanson, we know he had the knee injuries. He's been through the grinder. Remember the bout in WEC against Jose Aldo. This is someone who's been around the block, man. Cub Swanson, so elder statesman of the game, and that's why this line we see is very close. Billy Quarantillo, man, I'll be picking Billy Q, but he could get picked off here. It could be one of those situations where Billy is trying to close distance and Cub moves off the center line, cuts the angle, and lands a straight punch that drops Billy Q and sends him packing. But I would love to see Billy Q slow cook Cub Swanson and slow roast him in there and get a submission victory. That's a possibility. I know Cub's got a solid ground game himself, but I think that when the gas tanks get pushed in deep waters, are met. And we know Kyle Nelson, we saw that happen against him against Billy Q. The ability to weaponize cardio. Weaponizing cardio could be potentially in play here. So I'll be picking Billy Q. I think that this has the potential to end inside the distance. The larger octagon doesn't really bother me too much in this matchup. I think that both of these fighters, you're not going to see either of them backing up. Billy Q, not his style to do that. Now, let's talk main event of the evening. By the way, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your energy. If you have any questions in here, will Colby get another title shot after this? The world finds out in a matter of hours, Andrew. If you have any questions here, feel free to put them in the chat, and I'll be happy to answer them. Joaquin Buckley taking on Colby Covington. Now, if this matchup took place a few years ago, Colby would likely be a minus 300 or so favorite, even higher on fight day. And you saw he left a lot to be desired against Leon Edwards. Came out flat, didn't go for takedowns, just didn't look himself. And also, this is a fellow who's closing in on 37 years of age, and he's got a lot going on outside of the octagon too, supporting our president of the United States of America, who's going to be sworn into office soon. And Buckley here is very dangerous. I was at his fight against Vicente Luque, where he is in and out. And he has some solid takedown defense in that he's very unpredictable, and it's tough to wrangle Joaquin Buckley. And if Buckley comes into the octagon lathered up and sweaty, that is something to be a cause for concern if you're backing Colby Covington, because when Covington does get his takedowns, he typically rinses and repeats. It's not that he holds his opponents down, and that could lend itself to Buckley like a spring working his way back to the feet here. I would love for this fight to end up in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round. It has the potential to end early. Man, Unfortunately, I see Joaquin Buckley knocking out Colby Covington here, but there is a world where Colby Covington puts Joaquin Buckley through the grinder. Remember, this fight takes place in Florida. I suspect that Colby Covington has taken his strength and conditioning seriously for this one. The problem is, though, from most accounts, he's kind of done his own camp here, doesn't have people in his corner and people who are coaching him up. So I have a number of concerns: the age, the durability, the lackluster performance in a title fight against Leon Edwards. So can he get up for this matchup, Colby Covington? I am going to be picking Joaquin Buckley in this matchup, but really looking forward to seeing how this plays out. I'll be pulling for Colby Covington. I want Covington to walk away victorious. Now, you think Colby surprises everyone today? You just have the feeling. I know everyone's judging Colby from his last fight, recency bias, right? But his wrestling is legit for sure. And we've seen, Kevin Holland and others put Joaquin Buckley out of there and take him out of there. He's been put out a few times, Buckley. And the Impa Kasanganay matchup was a spot where, he could pull these knockouts off out of nowhere, Buckley. So just very, very interesting. Moises, you say Colby going to send Buckley back to the projects. Interesting stuff that you feel that way. Best bet. I'm keeping my eye on the Felipe Lima line, and man, there are a few spots. Manil Kape inside the distance is the line that I'm scoping out. There are a few others. There are a few ways you can go, and we still have a few hours for these lines to marinate before the octagon door closes for the first bout of the evening. So looking forward to it. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We're about 30 minutes in. If you wouldn't mind subscribing to the channel and liking the video, we will continue to put out these videos on fight day. And remember to go get what's yours, my brothers. We are here and we are ready to dominate the rest of our evening. So kick ass out there, my friends. Let's go.